We have been lied to this entire time. The first pirate king was not Gol D. Roger, it was Rox D. Xebec, and in fact the more we've learned, the more it's become clear that Rox was more of a pirate king than even Roger ever was. Whereas Roger technically gained the epithet Pirate King, he never truly ruled the seas. He was simply a bold and unstoppable adventurer, whereas Rox at his peak genuinely was, by definition, the king of the pirates. The only man who brought all the greatest pirates of the seas under his flag. The only reason that Roger is recognized as the first pirate king and that Rox is not is because the entire point of One Piece is that even the greatest legacies can be erased by the world. And in fact, it is the greatest and most dangerous legacies that the powers that be strive to erase above all else. The tragedy of Rox is that he was punished for flying too high and reaching too close to the sun. Despite rising to undoubtedly the greatest heights that any pirate ever achieved, he was robbed of the titles and legacy that his lesser successors, Roger and Whitebeard, enjoyed. Because what it came down to in the end was not who had the superior achievements, or who had the more dominant reign, or who truly embodied the notion of the king of the pirates, but rather simply who the world government was most desperate to erase. Today I'll be breaking down why Oda has lied to us this entire time, why the narrative we've heard over and over that Roger was the first and only pirate king is one that we were fed precisely because we were not yet ready to hear the story of the first king, the true king, because now is the time that the purpose and legacy of Rox's path is finally becoming clear. Here at the end of all things, where all the lost secrets of history are finally coming to light. But first, if you want to get 50% off a full box of meals, then you can get that with Factor, the sponsor of this video. So my least favorite task at the end of a long day has always been cooking. I want to eat good food that I like, but I never want to waste time at the end of the day cooking. And I definitely didn't want to order fast food all the time, otherwise I'd get really unhealthy. So Factor has pretty much been the perfect answer for me. It puts all my dinners on autopilot. I get a ton of great options from an extremely wide and varied menu that offers pasta, chicken, steak, seafood, and a lot more. And all of the meals genuinely taste restaurant quality because they're made by chefs. But I also know that all my meals are healthy because I can filter by the different plans. So there's Protein Plus, Keto, Calorie Smart, and more. And I personally have been using Calorie Smart. And then once the meals are delivered, I'm pretty much ready to go for the rest of the week. I just heat them up for 2 minutes each night, and then that's it. Dinner literally takes no thought for me, no time, and it always tastes good. So if you want to try ready-made meals and see how much easier it makes your life, then head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50morge and you'll get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50morge at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. So that aside, to begin with, Rox is objectively the greatest pirate in One Piece. Right off the bat, Rox began his story by killing a Marine admiral, making him the only known pirate to do so. However, what makes it all the more impressive is that Rox did this as a rookie. This was literally his first act as a pirate, and Rox likely grew in strength in the decade or so following this as he began to grow and establish his reign of terror. However, as we know, Rox's biggest claim to fame was his subordinates. The Rox pirates were, far and away, the most powerful pirate crew ever assembled. One that took the combined might of the second Pirate King's crew, the Marines, and the entire God's Knights to defeat. And considering the Roger pirates essentially came in as up-and-comers at the very end of Rox's reign, that meant that before the Roger pirates rose up, there was a lengthy period of time where Rox was essentially the captain of all the strongest pirates in the world, period. This is absolutely insane to consider. This would undoubtedly make Rox literally the Pirate King. If all the best pirates were working underneath him, then Rox was the true king of the pirates in a way that even Roger would never achieve. And it certainly does sound like the Rox pirates were formed from all the strongest pirates in existence at the time, as it's established that Rox seeked out every strong pirate to recruit them, that they were the strongest crew in the world, that they were a rampaging force of evil that no one could stop, and most importantly, it's established multiple times that as soon as the Rox pirates split up, they essentially went about divvying up the seas amongst themselves, meaning all the existing power in the pirate world was once concentrated in one singular crew led by Rox. This would be the modern day equivalent to if a single pirate was somehow able to bring all the Yonko today together to work under them. The captain of such a crew would obviously be the Pirate King by every definition of the term. And a quote-unquote rampaging force of evil that no one could stop would also fit the common definition of the Pirate King, as the King of the Seas. And what's actually most impressive is the fact that Rox initially wasn't the captain of the Rox Pirates when they all began working together. See, already having a pre-existing crew and then inviting other strong fighters to join said crew doesn't necessarily mean that much on its own, as it doesn't automatically mean that the captain of the pre-existing crew is definitely the strongest, as we've seen that new members may join out of convenience of being in a crew rather than believing the captain is above them. However, the Rox Pirates actually didn't start out with Rox in charge. They started out just as an unofficial group that was traveling together. That means that out of a group with no hierarchy, with everyone essentially starting out as equals, Rox at some point established himself as the top dog of the group and everyone else accepted him as number one, making the group officially his group, the Rox Pirates. Basically, amongst a gathering of kings, Rox cemented himself as the King of Kings. That is precisely what a Pirate King means, to be the King of Kings. All the strongest pirates of the era gathered together, and it eventually became clear who was number one. And most importantly, unlike Roger and Whitebeard, Rox also had no equal in strength for a long time. See, Roger did eventually rise up to dethrone Rox at God Valley, but that was 18 years into Rox's reign, giving Rox nearly 2 decades at the top, and Whitebeard supposedly only reached his own prime a couple years after the God Valley incident. I would argue that this made Rox more of an undisputed pirate king of his era than either Roger or Whitebeard, who shared the top spot with each other. On top of this, while we know that Rox was defeated at God Valley, we don't yet know for sure whether Roger ever actually surpassed Rox in strength. After all, besides Roger, it was a giant team effort that included Garp, Garling, Rayleigh, Gabon, and all the Gods Knights. Now, Rox obviously had a stacked roster on his side as well, but at the moment we have no way of knowing whether it came down to Roger defeating Rox 1v1. On top of this, while it's commonly accepted that Roger and Whitebeard are the strongest pirates ever, as they were always established to be a cut above all other pirates and only equal to one another, all of these statements that establish this do not include Rox. Because the whole point is that Rox was wiped from history. Almost no one alive today knows of Rox's accomplishments that took place from before 40 years ago, because Rox's very existence was buried. Sengoku is one of the few who actually knows about Rox's existence and his era, and Sengoku seems to believe that Rox was in fact Roger's greatest foe, above even Whitebeard. Though of course the word greatest can be interpreted in different ways, not necessarily just strength. At the very least, it's clear that Rox is at least top 3 strongest pirates ever alongside Roger and Whitebeard. And at the end of the day, the point is that Rox ruled the pirate world in a way that was clearly beyond what Roger and Whitebeard ever did. The simple reason Rox was never given the title quote-unquote Pirate King simply reflects the fact that the newspapers never coined the term at that point. After all, that's an epithet that the media came up with out of praise for Roger sailing the entire Grand Line, not for actually ruling the pirate world like Rox did. And more importantly, Rox could never be remembered as the King of the Seas after his death, because the world government went to great lengths to erase him. And here is where the true tragedy of Rox lies, and the unfortunate crossroads of fate that led to the greatest pirate of all time not being remembered as a king, while Roger was. One Piece is a story about how history is written by the winners. No matter how great the heights one reaches, all of that can be erased through a single defeat, as the winner is the one who writes history. Objectively, Rox was the greatest pirate of all time, whose reign could only be stopped by every other force on the seas teaming up against him. But it's not the truth that determines legacy, it's the stories that people decide to spread afterwards. We've seen that the single greatest kingdom in One Piece history, the Ancient Kingdom, with all of its ancient weapons and the strongest fighter ever at its helm, even that was wiped from history. Its greatness may as well have never existed, because ultimately it lost the deciding battle to an allied force, that then got to rewrite history as it saw fit, with the Ancient Kingdom's greatness stricken from the record. Rox's story is exactly the same. A pirate that reached heights that no one could match, until a great allied force banded together to topple him. And because Rox had gotten so close to destroying the established order, desperate measures had to be taken to erase his influence from the world. He was completely written out of the history books. Even Marines didn't pass the tales of Rox on to future Marines. And just like that, with a single defeat at God Valley, everything Rox accomplished, his reign as king of the pirates, may as well have never existed, because it was seemingly universally agreed upon that he would never be talked about again. On the other hand, while Roger never reached the heights of Rox, the difference is that Roger was never defeated in the end. Roger got to choose exactly how he got to die. No one ever captured Roger, no one ever even managed to beat him in a fight once he reached his prime. No one could stop the Roger Pirates until Roger decided to turn himself in because he had already accomplished everything he cared about. Roger had all the power all the way to the end. He got to choose exactly how he got to die. He planned it all and made sure that he would go out in a manner that left the greatest impact possible on the world. A death that would spark an entire great age of pirates in his wake, leaving behind a legacy that would never be forgotten by a single soul on Earth. None of that would have been possible if Roger had just been killed in a battle on some random island like Rox was. But because Roger went undefeated after dethroning Rox, and because winners get to choose how they die, Roger was able to choose to die in a way that will never be forgotten. Even Whitebeard, the unofficial Pirate King after Roger's death, was able to choose his death. He came to Marineford knowing that it would be his final voyage. He came prepared to go out with a bang. And he made sure that the world would never forget his final words and his legacy either. The only reason that the world of pirates today is inspired by Roger and Whitebeard's words and not Rox's is because fate was unkind to Rox. The entire world banded together to destroy him, and because Rox lost an unwinnable battle, he was robbed of all glory and all legacy. This is also likely why we see Kaido so obsessed with the idea of dying in a way that defines his legacy, as Kaido saw firsthand how his captain was unjustly erased from history, while pirates like Roger and Whitebeard got to go out in a way where they, quote-unquote, did it right. No one will ever forget those two, whereas no one will ever remember Rox, and the only difference is in how each of them went out, as a winner or a loser. Now on top of all this, it doesn't help that Roger was also a much kinder soul than Rox, as Roger made many friends before making his grand exit, and so Roger has countless great figures who actively choose to try to carry on his legacy and make sure that his will reaches the next generation. Whereas Rox seems to have been disliked by everyone to the point that his own subordinates, despite becoming the most influential pirates in the world after Rox's death, still chose to basically be disloyal rats who also buried his legacy and pretended that it never happened. But that aside, in the end, good or evil, the simple fact is that Rox is the bar for the greatest pirate that ever lived, not Roger. But the only reason that we perceive Roger to be the greatest is because that is the propaganda that has been successfully passed on by the world government and by other pirates. And finally, that in itself reflects the striking difference in those who are following Rox's path versus those who are following Roger's. But first, this month we just dropped our newly inspired versions of the best-selling One Piece Island posters for your walls. Water 7 at Night, the Straw Hats stand at Enies Lobby, Luffy's loss at Alabasta, the destruction of Skypiea, and more. All of these islands have been vividly reimagined, so make sure to check them out. You can get any 2 posters you like from the entire collection and get another 2 free. You can also get a bundle of 15 for a major discount, or even the entire collection bundle for a major discount. And if you complete your collection and you have 1 poster of every island, then we will send you the final exclusive unlockable poster for free, the Moon. So get your posters by hitting the link in the description below. See, almost all pirates on the sea are following in Roger's footsteps. The entire Great Age of Pirates was inspired by him. We saw pretty much every big name of that era attending Roger's funeral and taking in his words, because Roger went out as a winner. Our protagonist Luffy is chasing Roger as well, of course. But we know of only 2 characters who are chasing Rox, Blackbeard and Loki. And fittingly, both of these figures are essentially lost souls, outcasts by the standards of not just society, but even the pirate world. It's representative of the fact that while Roger got to leave behind a huge, flashy legacy that inspires most pirates around the world and is known by everyone, Rox's legacy became the sort of distant, faint echo that faded through the ages, and only just barely manages to cling behind with a select few on the fringes of the world. Even just seeing the contrast between Roger and Rox's children, Ace and Blackbeard, that same concept is reflected. Ace rose to prominence in the pirate world like this blazing star, setting the world alight, with every great pirate and marine being put on notice of his meteoric ascent. Ace was the one who Roger always planned to inherit his will, who he planned to be the next Joy Boy. I've even talked at length in previous videos that you can click on here about how Shanks very likely was in the East Blue specifically searching for Roger's son Ace to give him the Nika fruit. Ace was the golden boy of the pirate world right away, the one that the world government tried to ally with, the one that Whitebeard immediately took in as he recognized that this was the one who he is meant to raise to be Roger's successor and become the next pirate king. Ace was the one that all the great pirates of the New World saw as the light of the future after Roger. And Blackbeard? Blackbeard was the pirate that was never supposed to amount to anything, just a random fodder member of the Whitebeard pirates, never rising up the ranks, never making any waves, letting the decades go by without becoming anyone remarkable. Even after he finally made his move and began his journey, his rise was nothing like Ace's. Blackbeard remained this nobody that had to defy expectations again and again. No one had even heard of the man who had killed the 4th Division member of the Whitebeard Pirates. It was a joke to even consider such a no-name as a Shichibukai. This was the pirate with a 0 berry bounty. If Ace was the star of the pirate world, the representation of his father Roger's grand legacy, then Blackbeard was the nothing of the pirate world, the representation of his father Rox's lost legacy. But in the end, Rox's legacy would not go away that easily. No matter how much the world government tried to erase Rox, no matter how much the Marines tried to silence his stories, no matter how much his own crew tried to pretend that he never existed, Rox's legacy refused to die. Blackbeard is single-handedly keeping it alive, and in an act of arguably poetic justice, Blackbeard defeating Ace was Rox's vengeance from beyond the grave, the son of the true Pirate King that the world tried to erase, triumphing over the son of the false one that the world had propped up. And of course, Blackbeard isn't stopping there. He is still rising and will soon force the world to reckon with what they all tried to hide. The context around the finale of the story of Luffy and Blackbeard's final showdown has just become that much more interesting. A battle between the one following in the footsteps of the supposed Pirate King and the one following in the footsteps of the true Pirate King. So let me know in the comments below who you consider to be the true first Pirate King, Rox or Roger, and if you enjoyed this video then definitely like and subscribe. And if you want to hear how there have essentially been 4 Pirate Kings in One Piece, then you can listen to my weekly podcast that just dropped by becoming a member or by supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below.